So I think one of the wonderful things about the Lunchtime ministry, which I've always loved, is that it's an organic place. So let me tell you about how it started. Probably 30 years ago, a bunch of senior citizens in our very small German congregation here started knitting blankets for the homeless down on our building on Washington Street. And they started, not even for the homeless, they were just for the hungry. It was sort of a quilting sort of a thing. Over the years, it grew more and more, and they started to serve coffee, and then they started to serve sandwiches to the quilters. And it became clear, as the story was told to me, it became clear over time that people were coming for the sandwich because there were senior citizens in Hoboken that were having food insecurity issues. So they were coming to quilt, and they were coming to have a sandwich and a cup of soup with their friends as they quilted. And then in the 80s, as Hoboken changed again, interestingly enough, more and more hungry people showed up. So the quilters sort of switched gears on the spot and became the soup makers and the sandwich makers. So these little old ladies who were originally quilting, little old ladies and men, some of them, sort of morphed the program from a little congregational-based knitting program into sort of an impromptu soup kitchen. People would come by and they'd have a cup of soup and a sandwich, and then they would go their own way. And over time, the program grew and grew and grew, and it grew from a handful of people sharing soup and a sandwich to where it is today, where in any given day we could serve between 60 and 80 homeless men and women, or hungry men and women, I should say, because not everyone here is homeless. This program serves people who are homeless, people who are the working poor, people who are successfully housed and just hungry and looking for a little bit of companionship. So what was great about this program is it's sort of the situation in the community dictated the program rather than the other way around. It sort of grew based on the need that was presented. And that's kind of, I think, how Spike and the other people who run this program day to day try to handle it.
We're going to have smoked turkey on the side and beef cilantro soup and apple cobbler for dessert. Announcements, guitar lessons will be today around 11:30. And Manuel from Welfare is not coming today, but Gail from Medicare is going to try and come.
My name is Spike Ensweiler. I am the program manager for St. Matthew Trinity Lunchtime Ministry, and I've been working here since January of 2016. So part of the job is supervising here. I am here on the site every day, and I run things in the kitchen and the dining room. And if I coordinate the volunteers and the menus, and outside of that, I write emails and write grants and welcome new social services and look for different services and ways to assist our guests.
Well, today we're cooking, we're making rice and soup and ham. And sandwiches. We got sandwiches going on over there. We're going to serve in about 45 minutes. We're going to serve a lunch to everybody, to about 60 people here.
My name is Shaquan Porter. I'm just standing here next to Spike on my left. I'm in the kitchen with good volunteers that's cooking good food for us to eat today.
I think Lunchtime Ministry looks at the people as a whole and not just as hungry people. It's very important to us that we have communication in such a fashion with them that we hear what their problems are, what they're facing day to day. I come in every morning and spend a little bit of time at each table, and people really tell me the things that are going on in their lives. And that is one of the most important services we can do, is listening to people, because many of these people don't have a lot of support that will just listen to them. I'm very proud of the volunteers that we have and that have come in to offer art classes, to offer knitting classes, to offer different kinds of music classes like guitar lessons. We have also from the city, from the county, from the state, social service organizations that come in as well.
I'm so glad I'm here to this art class today. She's an amazing teacher, she's inspiring, she's inclusive, and she's an art genius. I try to go here and make some art. I'm very proud of everything I do.
One of the big misconceptions that we deal with is that a lot of people in Hoboken look at the population of the Hoboken shelter and assume that they're outsiders in some way. The plain facts are that at least 25% of our residents at any given time are born and raised Hobokenites. Another 25% were born within 5 miles of the Hoboken shelter. So at least half of the people in our shelter at any given time are locals, right? So it's not those people, it's our people. So the real question is whether we want to take care of our people or not. And that's always been very important to me.
We provide breakfast and lunch. Those are the two main meals. We have breakfast as soon as we open up, and a whole lot of coffee all morning long. We have lunch at 10 a.m., so it's an early lunch, which means our guests can get going for the day after they eat, and they can go to their appointments or go to look for work or do whatever they have to do for the rest of the day. We also usually have food to go, and we have canned food and other things that folks can bring along with them after they leave our doors. We have other services, including we give out hygiene items, socks, winter, hats, gloves, scarves, stuff like that. And we give out, we have free haircuts once a month. We do clothing donations once a month. And we offer tenants' rights counseling, SSI counseling, SSD counseling, financial counseling. We have health screenings, flu shots, and voter registration, and a number of other services. We have a guitar lesson every Thursday, and we have art classes every Tuesday.
One of the little known facts about Hoboken is that food is not the biggest issue. Homeless people and hungry people in Hoboken have places to eat. There's lots of food being offered. But what the Lunchtime Ministry offers that no one else offers, in my opinion, is a place to just come and be, a place to relax, a place to get off the street, a place to, a place to be seen and to be respected and to rest. I don't think we can fully understand how pressurized it is for someone who's a street-dwelling homeless person in the world, someone who's living, being chased from the park to the emergency room to the train station, never really able to relax. A very high number of our guests come here on a day-to-day basis and just sleep for 4 hours. They don't even eat. So for some people it's sleep. For other people it's the art program. For other people it's a place to fellowship safely with their friends. And there's very little place to do that. You really can't do that on a park bench on Washington Street. So it really provides, I think it provides more spiritual care than it does nutritional care. And I think that's what I've always loved about this place. I started in the Hoboken shelter in 1986 or so, and it was interesting. I started on a whim. I was out of college. I graduated from college in '84, and just on a whim, some friends and I went down to the Hoboken shelter to cook a meal for the night. And I had this very strange experience because it came time to serve the meal, and there were 3 or 4 kids from my high school class who were on the other side of the bread line. And I had graduated from Hoboken High in 1979, which wasn't that long ago. And I sort of was struck with this, this real sort of incongruence that there were these people who were my contemporaries a few years ago playing basketball together, and now they were on the other side of a bread line. So my first initial reaction was to freak out. I hid in the kitchen and didn't serve that night. But at the same time, it really cemented my relationship with the place. We really didn't have a significant homeless population through the 70s. But it was interesting, we had lots of poor people, a higher percentage of working poor and blue-collar folks, but not really what you think of today as a homeless population. But sometime in the mid-'80s, that all changed. And it changed for a number of reasons, I believe. One is this renaissance that we're still sort of going through now began. And people tend to forget that every renaissance, there's a price for every renaissance, and the people who generally pay that price are often forgotten about after the fact. So that started to change. The city of Hoboken also had a move to close down a lot of the existing SROs, which are single room occupancy, sort of places. We had lots of buildings that housed former longshoremen and merchant marines and senior citizens and all of those type of people. They were suddenly, in a very short period of time, kicked out into the streets because the city closed their SROs as being unsafe. And that's really, and then when you add on top of that, the situation that was going on with the fires at the time. There were lots of fires. I remember when I was in grammar school going and planting trees in Elysian Park for children who had died in my class. I mean, this was a very important part of Hoboken's history, which is not talked about a whole lot, but again is part of a new discussion these days, which I think is great. But there were also people who were displaced because of arson for profit fires and for other reasons. So suddenly in the mid-'80s we had a new homeless population. And what was interesting is that the people who banded together to do something about it were the local communities of faith. So in 1983, 5 churches and a synagogue got together and said, we have to do something about this new burgeoning homeless problem that we had. Sister Norberta, who was one of the first people there, thought that it would be a short-term solution. They thought this problem would go away pretty quickly. So one of the Lutheran congregation on 3rd and Bloomfield said, we have a basement available. And these churches and the synagogue got together and they opened up a church to act as a shelter. And interestingly enough, the first thing that the city of Hoboken did was to write us a letter closing us down, saying you have no right to run a shelter on 3rd and Bloomfield. It's against the zoning ordinance and you're in violation of the zoning ordinance, so cease and desist. What was interesting is we got I wasn't involved at the time, but the communities of faith got together and hired an attorney, and they sued the city of Hoboken to remain open. And we managed to get a decision from a Superior Court judge whose name was Burl Ives Humphreys, and he was the assignment judge at the time in Hudson County. And he issued a really broad-ranging opinion, quoting case law going back to the Magna Carta, which said that churches don't need special zoning approval in order to be shelters, that they are, by their very nature, places of shelter, and they don't need the city of Hoboken or anyone else to give them special zoning permission. And so we remained open, and that decision kept us open, and that same decision is used across the country dozens of times a year to open shelters in other communities whose governments have been less than friendly towards them. So that was a real landmark decision, and we're very proud of that.
Our guests are not just our guests. They are your brothers and sisters. Their welfare is an important job for everyone. Get to know the homeless. Get to know the hungry. You will be very surprised at how much you have in common with them.